see the slideshow or the Facebook page?
The slideshow.
Okay.
Slideshow. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. I can see a lot of people joining, that's nice.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session as part of the online event program at the Photo Israel International Photography Festival. Photo Israel is a non-profit organization established in Israel in 2000 to realize our social vision of creating a better society through the language of photography, of social activity, and of creating a dialogue between the art and different communities in Israel. We believe that photography is a universal language that reaches across all cultures and genders to be understood by all. A language that allows for building bridges between central and remote areas and between unprivileged communities and the general public. This session is going to be in the session of Canon Student Development Program and the tips for developing photographic work and career. The conversation will be led by Camilla Ferrari, an artist and a project manager of the program, in collaboration with 3 photographers who participated in it this year. Avishag Shah-Yeshuv, Mustafa Gruz, and Nadia Adler. This session will feature a 45-minute conversation, and we will then take questions from the audience. Camilla, you have the stage.
Thank you, Imbal, and hi everyone. And thank you, Photo Israel, for inviting us to have this talk. You presented us all already, but just a quick background of about myself. As Imbal mentioned, I'm the project manager of the 4th edition of the Canon Student Development Program, which, of course, due to the current global scenario, had to be a digital edition. But nonetheless, we try to make it as inclusive and as involving as possible. And I'm gonna share my presentation shortly for you to see what it is all about. I am also an alumni of the program because I participated in it in 2018. And I'm a photographer and a video maker from Milan, Italy, where I'm currently based in lockdown. So I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about the program before leaving the stage to the photographers. So as we mentioned, Canon Student Development Program is an initiative created by Canon and directed by Luca Rocco. Luca, if you're watching us, hi. And it has been created 4 years ago during the Visa pour l'Image Festival in France, in Perpignan in France, which is one of the most important photojournalism festivals in the world, if not the most important one. And it has been, since its conception, a place where photographers and photo editors and curators could meet and create relationships. And the Canon program's aim was to gather students from Europe at the beginning, but this year the news was that it was Europe, Middle East, and Africa as well. More than 200 students from these geographic areas, to gather them in the same place, let them meet, let them network, create connections with clients and possible magazines they could work with. Of course, the pandemic didn't allow us to do that. So we tried to create an engaging experience, it being online. So we kind of tweaked the structure of the program, and we divided into three sections, three moments. The first moment was July, August, this summer, and it was the preparation phase. So basically the students, including Nadia, Avishag, and Mostafa as well, they had 2 one-on-one mentoring sessions with a mentor of their choosing to talk about their work. They were private sessions, so it was only them with no public. And they had the chance to really brainstorm with the mentors and curate their portfolios to then be presented in the presentation phase to the group portfolio reviewers. So the 200 students were divided in groups, and each group had the chance to meet with top international professionals in the photography industry and show their work. And these group portfolio reviews were public, meaning that the audience could also see what was going on. And I think this was a very interesting aspect of our program, because usually these portfolio reviews are not public at all. Even in person is something that usually is one-on-one. So I think it's very interesting, but maybe the students and photographers are going to tell us more about that. But I think it was a nice occasion to also peek in another students' portfolio reviews and learn more also from them. And then we are having actually the publication phase. So we are currently curating a book, which is going to be a physical object in a digital program to give a testimony of the work that the students did, including the work of Nadia, Avishag, and Mostafa as well, of course. And stay tuned, because the book is going to be released soon. We are currently in the final stages of the design process, so it's coming out very greatly, guys. So I cannot wait to show it to you. And I prepared this slide with all the professionals that we involved to give you a sense of the magnitude of people who actually joined our program and helped the program come to life. And you see we have curators, again, we have photo editors, we have critics, we have gallerists, we have writers, festival directors. I mean, there was a roster of very different kind of personalities from all over the world. And here are the names. And aside from the 3 modules of the program, we also hosted lectures, 12 lectures each morning from September 1st and 2nd till the 5th, which were public as well. And all the program that you're seeing here, I want to mention this because I think it's important, is completely free. So the students didn't have to pay a tuition. To make the application was free, and all the activities were provided for free. Both in this digital edition and also in the physical edition. And I cannot assure you what's going to happen next year. We are sure that something is going to happen. But I prepare this final slide just to suggest, if you're interested in joining the program, to follow #Canon Students. We are gonna post any news using that hashtag. And let's hope that next year we're gonna be speaking about these things in Perpignan. So now I'm gonna leave the stage to you guys. We're gonna have Nadia Adler first, then Mostafa Gruz second, and Avishag Sharyashuf third. I hope I pronounced them correctly. I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you all.
So thank you, Camilla, very much for presenting us. I will share my screen in a moment. All right. So thank you, Camilla, again. Thank you, everyone, for having us tonight. I'm very excited to be here. So I will begin by briefly introducing myself. My name is Nadia Adler. I was born in Orenburg, a small town of South Russia, and I moved to Israel about 12 years ago, when I was about 10 years old. I'm a recent alumni of Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design of the photography department, and an alumni of Canon Student Development Program 2020 edition, the digital one. In my practice, I use a 35mm camera, mostly black and white film. I print my works in the darkroom, and I spend a lot of times surrounded by my own photographs, by my own works. In the beginning of my studies, I was gathering a lot of material and working almost strictly digitally, scanning and editing my photographs on the computer. But very soon I realized that something was missing there for me. And there was a big urge to feel the photograph, to hold it in my hand, and to touch the moment that was captured. So there was a lot of printing and crumbling and tearing and assembling, a lot of experimenting with different types of paper, different old printing techniques, a lot of experimenting with the photography medium. But eventually I came back to this almost traditional way of photography with a small format camera, black and white film, just being in the field in front of my subject and capturing for what it is. I develop my works and my prints in the darkroom, rinsing and drying, touching and retouching them, really getting to know every bit and every grain of the photograph. This way, kind of bringing back to life all the captured moments and truly feeling the photograph. Here you can see an installation detail from my graduation exhibition, where I presented some of the photographs from the project that I will talk just in a bit, talk about it. And here you can see a couple of silver prints that were hanging bare on the wall without a frame, and they were not fully glued to the wall. So the bottom parts were left hanging free. And the beauty of the silver prints is that they're never stopped drying, let's say, and they're moving and changing their form according to their placement. So throughout the whole exhibition, which stood for almost a month, I could see how the edges got wrinkles and they became more present. The photographs changed their forms and almost breathed as the time went on. This movement of the paper brought my subjects back to life, and they were right there staring back at me. And these little wonders of the photographic material are the most valued moments in my work. And this is the kind of things that I seek and pursue in my projects. This kind of intimacy that I can develop with my subjects and with my works when they're printed and ready. So the project that I'm going to show you is called A Distant Voice of the Cuckoo, which is a photo series focusing on describing my personal memories from Russia and the way they disconnect when visiting my childhood home. The name of this project was born based on one of the most distinct memories from my hometown village, where you could always hear a distant voice of the cuckoo bird right after a storm somewhere out from the woods. And it was sounding like a consolation song of a bird mother urging her children to come home. A bird song that couldn't be heard here in Israel, where I am right now. And suddenly I began to miss this sensation. And the whole project follows this sensation of recollecting past memories from the motherland and discovering their physical absence while visiting the actual place. Since we moved here, I visited Russia for the first time only 2 years ago with my camera in my hands. And I came back with a lot of material, hundreds of pictures and a lot of emotions. There was another trip to Russia, this time more targeted to the project, but most of the used photographs are chosen from the first trip, which was more of a physical and life experience rather than a project targeted trip. Since I wasn't born here in Israel, I could feel the weight of memories from another place. I could feel the memories from another place and recollections that are felt more embedded in the body rather than the thought. The state and feeling of nostalgia in memory meets kind of with reality and factuality in this project and creates a disconnection, some sort of distortion of my sense of being. This homeland remains the same but different from what I once knew and felt. This body of work is an attempt to embody this in-between feeling, an attempt to restore the past, but never truly finding it again. In this project, I developed this language of being close, but from a distance, kind of being present in the scene, but only gazing on what's going on, barely participating in the reality that I couldn't accept at that time. And this type of language describes my actual behavior and feeling that I had during this first trip. During this project also arose a lot of questions of what is home, what is it and where it lies on the map or in the heart. While working on the graduation exhibition, I focused only on black and white images, creating only a sentence of the whole story. I had to choose under 10 images from all the huge archive that I had, in that way sharing only a particle of the whole journey. Right after the graduation exhibition went down, I began the Canon Student Development Program. So Camilla explained how the program worked, that I needed to choose a mentor for one-on-one meetings. And for me, the mentor was Sophia Malik-Lugart. We had 2 one-on-one meetings. We met and we talked a lot about how I can continue to edit this project. And as this year's edition was fully online and fully digital because of the global pandemic, I took this as a chance to incorporate more color images into the final edit and to clarify the main point of this series. I wanted to detach from the emotions surrounding these images and to tell a more broad story of disconnection, distance, and longing. Sophie is a wonderful woman and an exceptional artist, in my opinion. It was a great pleasure to meet and work with her. She helped me to pinpoint some themes that are repeating and reoccurring in my work, to help me choose the right material for the final edit. Afterwards, we had the great editing session with a small group of other students from around the world, and it was guided by Martina Bacigalupo. Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. And she created an online round table. She tried to recreate the physical experience of the editing session that we could have in the real world, let's say. And we all sat around this round table. And in that way, she created an easy entry for a discussion and just a lovely time. It always needs some courage to begin a conversation and discussion, especially online. And I think it was the most powerful impact on all of the participants. And Martina really brought the best of us to that round table. I think that the session was very unique, and all of the students that were with me in the group really enjoyed it and had some valuable feedback that we got from each and every one of us. So some tips for developing the work for me is firstly to print everything and just have it all in front of you. This is something that kind of a habit of mine that follows me from the very beginning of my studies, that really helped me to understand the quantities and the qualities of the things in work and the material that I have, especially now in the digital era. And during the Canon development program, I had all the works printed in front of me, laid out on the table. While we were watching on the screen and just moving images inside the folder, I was having it on my table as well and just touching it, feeling it. I think it is crucial to physically move things around, check different combinations and sequences. And it's just easier to edit having all the material right in front of you. In the pictures attached, you can see me working in my studio space with all the material from the project, trying to figure out how to edit it. And the second point is kind of following the first one, is sequencing. I think that the order in which you tell the story, in order in which the viewer gets to know it, decides the message that the message and the value that you want to express in your work, throughout your work. The way the viewer is reading your work, the first one and the last images are crucial. If there even are a first and the last, maybe it's a loop, maybe there is no order in particular, but I think that there has to be a decision made on how the reader views your work. And the last tip, I wrote to be yourself, which may be a little bit cliche, but I think that mostly we have to be persuasive after our own truth. The speakers and mentors and professors and all the other people will always have their unique opinion of your work, sometimes with great value to the project, sometimes not. It is critical to find your own truth and stick with it until the end. I got great feedback and helpful suggestions on how to make my work better. I heard a lot of interesting ideas and associations that people had about it, which opened my mind to new approaches to what I already knew and had. I see it as a core of our success and the core of the success of our works. To be honest to ourselves and true to our intentions. And it will bring the most significant experiences back to us. And this point could be applied to all of the stages of creating a photographic work, from the very beginning of photographing and being in the field, and then editing, and then presenting and sharing the work, or not to, and just keeping the work to yourself. But it is crucial, in my opinion, to remember why you started this particular project, and just to know your why, and the work will speak for you. All these points got kind of sharpened in me throughout the Canon Student Development Program, which I'm very glad for and I'm very thankful for. It was a very short program, only 5 days, but having all these people around my work, all these people sharing their work, it really opened my mind, and a lot of amazing themes and ideas. All these great minds together created an intense kind of atmosphere of thinking and speaking photography. It was an amazing opportunity to remind myself and to remind others why photography is such an amazing medium, and why we chose it as a lifestyle. So that's it for me for now. Thank you very much. And I'm passing the stage to Mustafa.
Thank you, Nadia. That was great. Thank you for sharing the project and also giving us your experience on the program. I'm very glad this is your feedback on it. So thank you once again. Mustafa, the floor is yours.
I have no idea why you see me in the corner, but okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mustafa Ghrouz. I'm a 22 years old photographer from Jerusalem City, and I have never studied photography. I'm specialized in landscape and macro photography, and I have been doing that for almost 8 years. I'm actually, I have a bachelor's degree in international relations and Russian studies, and I'm currently doing a master's degree in international relations at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, as well as learning filmmaking and videography. During the program, I had the opportunity to represent 2 photography projects, 2 unusual ones, since they do not focus on a specific story, but rather try to deliver an idea. So the first project I called Sense of Scale, and the story behind that is, as landscape photographers, we usually get excited when standing in front of an epic scenes, whether it had tall mountain peaks, giant lakes, or huge waterfalls, and therefore we rush into grabbing our widest angle lens and attempt to cram as much of the scene into one photo. So personally, I tended to avoid having people or any human elements um, in my photos, since I felt they were often a distraction from the pure nature scene I was going to capture. So by that, and since these landscape scenes are not everyday things that are familiar to everyone, and due to the lack of familiar shape or item, perspective could be easily misled by not showing the real scale or real size of a certain object. A photograph is a single image that needs to convey some of that meaning and feeling without the advantage of being there. This is why it is important to give a proper scaling and a reference to size to deliver the real sense of scale to the ordinary viewer. So in my photographs, I tend to use humans and houses, which are the most familiar things to a human in relation to size, as an attempt to show how great and huge nature is and how small we are as humans in this big world. Um, my second photography project, which I called The World Through Different Eyes, is a series of photographs that I have captured of a variety of insects that live and spread in Jerusalem during the past few years, which focuses mainly on showing the very small details of these small creatures, as well as their behaviors during their normal life. Um, these photographs allow the viewer, the ordinary person, to see details that his naked eye cannot see without magnification or without special tools. Most of us are bothered to see these creatures or their presence in our surrounding environment, which causes us to simply displace them or use our hands to kill them. Um, so the attempt to view this small world through one or another point of view, such as that of the insects, opens our eyes to a different new world that contrasts with the huge and crowded world in which we humans live. Um, I see it like that: a small rock in the eyes of an insect is a huge mountain, and a drop of rain is like for an insect it is like a great flood. And as for the flowers and herbs, they are like trees that form an endless forest. um, I would like to mention that in order to take these photos, I just used a Canon 60D, some cheap extension tubes from eBay. They had no autofocus or aperture control, and a speed light and cheap extension, cheap diffuser for the lighting, a homemade one. Um, Although this year's edition of the program was unexpected and not as it usually is, I mean, in an online format, but it still had advantages. And the biggest one for me, I believe, is giving the opportunity to more students from around the world to participate, especially those who um, cannot travel for different reasons. Um, I believe this experience at the program gives you the confidence to talk about and show your work for two main reasons. First, if you get accepted into the program, That means you got great content. And second, you go through preparation sessions with a mentor who helps you with your portfolio and how to make it look the best. Um, During the final stage, you get your portfolio reviewed by professionals in the industry, people who actually know which work is potentially successful. And you do not get those reviews and not those fake compliments you usually get on social media. And I remember that right after I finished my presentation, I started getting Instagram notifications and messages asking about my work and macro shots from other students in the program. So uh, I actually became friends with those people, and I believe it is a great way of making connections with other young photographers who as well have great stories to tell. And I believe even non-photographers would enjoy hearing and seeing. So that's it, I guess.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. And I want to just mention something. Thank you for your presentation. We are gonna let Avishag speak in a second, and you're going to see her work is, again, different from Mustafa's and from Nadia's. Just to highlight that there's no specific genre to apply to the program. I think the students saw it by confronting themselves with the others. You know, there's documentary photography, there's portrait photography, landscape photography, macro photography. I mean, there's lots of different types of imagery that can be involved in the program. So don't be shy. And the application, again, is free. So I think it's for us a way to include as many kinds of visual storytelling as possible and to discover the young generation of photographers that's out there, not only from Europe, but as Mustafa said, also from Middle East and Africa too from this year. So sorry, Avishag, just a quick note. Now it's your turn. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Camilla. I'm very happy to be here. And my name is Avishag Shalyashu. I'm a freelance photojournalist and documentary photographer for the past 10 years. And I will be 30 next week. Let's begin with the share screen. When I was 22, I got a special assignment from the economy newspaper, Calcalist. It took a few months to cover this story about the ecological communities in Israel. After it was published, I knew that I can do more with it. So I decided to continue and to make it to my own project. In one of the community events, I saw a beautiful van with a lot of paintings, and I met there the Bari family. Amnoni is a circus man. Tamal, his wife, she is an artist, and their daughter, Malmalu, their baby. It was easy for me to start conversation with the family because they saw my picture from the other project about the communities, and they told me that I have a plan to drive with their van across the Israel. For me, it sounds like a really interesting story. So I took their phone number and I tried to call them, but they didn't answer. When they finally called me back, they told me that they decided to park the van in a small village in the Galil area. It was a place that I knew before because most of the people from the communities came from this place. And also they told me they don't have a plan to drive again. So I tried to figure out what should I do. Should I continue with this story or should I quit? I decided to go for it. And for now, this is my project for the past 7 years. I think that the reason I decided to cover this story for so many years is because I'm a photojournalist. Most of the time, I'm covering wars, conflicts, religious. It is always black or white. And when I go there, there are so many colors. They are different people. And for me, it was an opportunity to bring another view of the Israeli people. They are not soldiers, they are not Orthodox, they are just happy hippies. The work with Catalina Martin-Chico, my mentor in the program, was a great opportunity for me to look back at my pictures that I haven't seen in years. I forget that they exist. In the beginning, I had countless pictures, but I chose less than 300. Then I started editing them and we cut them to 84 pictures. What I have done all the way with Catalina was to go over and over again and to try minimize the picture to only 32 pictures. You have to understand, it's a very specific and hard process of working because it's required me to do what was hardest things for me. Give up some of the pictures that I find beautiful or very important. And it is hard to get out of the mindset that you had before. But it was a great chance to get a new perspective on what my project can and should look like. I didn't know how to do it, but with a lot of help from Catalina and hours of work and reviewing everything, my presentation at the end of the program went really well. I got compliments from Mohammad Muhaysen. If you don't know him, he is one of the most talented photographers in the world with 2 Pulitzer Prizes. I was very excited that he was the one to give me the review. This all editing just brought me back to this project. After a year, I didn't took any new picture for the project. So I went back to the family to take more pictures. And now for me, the project feels even more meaningful and complete. This is the last 32 pictures that we choose together. This is from the conversation with Muhammad. And those are the last pictures I took this year with the family. And it was very exciting things for me to go back and take them. So Canon asked me to share with you 3 points about this program, that how to take you to the next level as photographers. So the first one, create connection with photographers from around the world. Because of the program, I stayed in touch with Muhammad, and with his help, I'm sending my project to unique programs of documentary photography world, and it's a big opportunity for me. The second one, get a professional perspective on your images and also on your editing work. I've got to edit my project several times and even sold it to a lot of magazines around the world. However, after the program, I feel like my project is in the best shape it could be. Create a new project with deeper understanding of how to properly create and build it. After this project, I feel like I really know how to face a new project, and I'm sure that my next one will be much composed. And also thanks for Canon and my husband that in the first time in my life, I have a portrait of myself. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Avishag. That was lovely. So yeah, I think we are getting to the Q&A session, but before we get to the questions from the audience, so don't be shy, just throw the questions in. No question is too simple to be asked. I just wanted to just say that I agree with the point that all the 3 of you all raised, which was creating connections. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am an alumni myself. I joined the program in 2018. And I remember it was different, yes, because it was in person, but I think it kind of worked the same way. I remember that for me it was so important to be there because I had the chance to talk and meet with people that otherwise would be unreachable for me. The same way that the program did in the online version to gather people from around the world, Perpignan in person does the same because people from around the world travel when they can to be there. So at the same time, you meet people from Europe, from Africa, from United States, from Asia, from all over the world, and show your work. And in my case, for example, I remember that just by saying hi to a photo editor, I introduced myself, and just the fact of introducing myself led to the second piece of the puzzle and the third piece and the fourth piece, just to match my face with a name and my work with a name. And it seems something very simple, but we are people behind the images that we create. And I think that personal connections with photo editors are essential to create a connection to then actually work with these photo editors. And a second thing that I think all three of you mentioned was to receive feedback and to curate your portfolio is so important, right? But most of all, to be honest, Nadia, you mentioned that at the end of your presentation, and I completely agree. And I would add also to be open to critiques without taking it too personally. It's tough to receive critiques, but for example, in my case, I had a critique at my group portfolio review, which completely tore me apart. I remember getting out of the room crying. The reviewer, though, was very honest about my work and gave me some suggestions. She said, you should focus on video as well. And 2 years later now, my work has been including video a lot. So, you know, I didn't know then, but for sure it opened the door for thought. And I'm very grateful that critique happened. So that said, I'm seeing we have a lot of questions coming in. So some are for the program specifically, some are for you guys. They're asking if there's a minimum age to join the program. No. There is a maximum age limit, although we open 10 to 20 places, I believe, for people who were born before 1992. And this was because previously the program was just for people up to 29 years. But then we decided to open it up so that people could actually join, even if they got to photography later in their life journey. So do you have to be a current student in order to enter the program? Yes. It doesn't matter if it's a photography student or an architecture student or a geography student. It doesn't matter as long as you are enrolled in a university or school. Where does the program take place? As we mentioned at the beginning, the program takes place at Perpignan, which is in France. And it's a small, beautiful little town in France, where during the Visa pour l'Image photography festival in the first week, which is called the Pro Week, where all the professionals come in. And no, you don't have to use only Canon cameras to join the program. No, that's not a mandatory request. You can use whatever camera you please. So this was the Q&A sections. I have a question actually for you guys. We have 15 minutes left, so I take this occasion to ask you this. Avishag mentioned this, but do you think your portfolio looks very different from when you actually started the program to the end? Do you actually see an evolution of your portfolio? And if so, did you manage to stay true to yourself, although you were, surrounded by a lot of feedback in the process? I know Avishag, you already talked about this. Maybe Nadia and Mustafa can give us a little bit of thought on that. You decide who goes first.
I can say that definitely my portfolio has evolved, and I think that the most impact that I got from the portfolio was from seeing other people's portfolios and seeing other people's works, and I did have the chance to go inside the editing sessions that were not from my group, just other people the other days, and these were actually the most fun and most interesting. I couldn't say that they're more interesting from my own portfolio review, but it is because it's always fun to talk about
different perspective.
Yeah, but seeing how other people from all around the world talk about their work, what are they doing, how do they present themselves, and sequencing their works, was very opening, just because even if you study in an art academy or in the photography department or any academy, you still kind of go into through the same line of everyone kind of copying each other at some base. So my portfolio did evolve, and I think I just got some little tips that really learned me how to keep evolving it. Just keep doing what we all do. That's it.
So Mustafa, you want to add something?
I received was not the most positive. I mean, the requirements for getting into business are not simple. So mostly the things that get you jobs, real photography jobs, include telling stories of humans. I mostly focus on macro and landscapes. I use humans as as a sense of scale, but not like, I do not focus on their stories. So I started to combine between epic landscapes, but still include a certain story of someone, maybe someone that who is connected to that place or to the area in general. It's just it's developing still.
No, but that's great. I think, you know, sometimes the critiques enrich us. Sometimes they just give us a hint of a thought that we can then develop ourselves, you know. And I think to have a different opinion is always useful, to get out of yourself and look at yourself from an external perspective, without taking it personally necessarily. So I'm glad this was useful for you to develop a different train of thought. So that's a good thing. I'm seeing a question again, an organizational question. They're asking, what is the experience you need to apply to get in? Is a project in progress necessary? It doesn't have to be in progress necessarily. What you need to have to apply is a portfolio of images, like the ones that the 3 photographers today showed you. So you're required to send a PDF with your work, along with a motivation letter of why you want to apply, and a short biography of yourself, and like general data that we need to collect. But you don't have to have a specific experience. You just have to be a person who's passionate for photography and who wants photography to be their life journey. So that's all it takes. And my advice and tip is also to be very determined. I think our field is a field where rejection is always around the corner. And we as humans have to have the determination of trusting our guts and knowing why we're doing photography as a profession, and just stick to it and be determined and get yourself out there, show your work to as many people as possible, in order to grow in your practice every day more. Claudia is asking a question to Nadia and to Avishag as well. What was your creative process? Meaning, did you plan what photos you wanted to shoot, or you just recorded different moments while being there?
So I can begin. Thank you, Claudia. For me, I think I mentioned briefly that there were 2 trips to Russia in order to continue with the project. First one being the first time just visiting my homeland, and the second one being more targeted in order to continue the project and shoot specific things. But again, I used in the project mostly photos from the first trip that were seen more emotionally honest. I wasn't really planning on what I wanted to shoot, but I did know that I had to capture what it is. I had to capture my grandparents who are getting older. I have to capture all these old buildings and streets, and kind of to get the last remains of the memory that I have right now as a young adult from my childhood. So there wasn't a specific planning for specific photos, rather just a need for photography for this project and for myself as an individual. And I think that was my main drive with this project, just follow the gut and shoot.
It's also for me pretty much the same. Like if you want to shoot something documentary, you can't plan things. Like you need to follow with the family, you need to follow with the moment, and just to feel if in your series there's something missing, like the landscape, like one of the children, like more portrait. I don't think you can plan more of that.
There's another question for you, Avishag, and also beautiful words about your work from Benny. Shira is asking, how long did it take you to develop the trust of your subjects? Did you ever pose them? Do you think that the family knowing you were photographing changed the way they acted? That's a cool question, actually.
So how long did I take to develop the trust? A lot of time. Like in the first time, I didn't took out my camera. Like when I saw them on the first time, I took a little bit, but after that we just a little bit like made a conversation. Like I tried to figure out which kind of family I'm meeting. And just after that, when I feel comfortable and they feel comfortable, it was easy for me to bring the camera also. Like, I think the most important things in a long-term project, and even in short one, it's to feel comfortable, and also the people will feel comfortable. And this is, for me, this is the only way to documentary. Like to feel the intimate between the people. Do you think that the family knowing you were something changed? I want to believe that I don't act in a different way. I can to know that. Like on the first time that I got there, they were especially for me like a very color, wears a dress and things like that. But also I understand that it's the same on the life. Like that's the wear they wearing. It's not for me. It feels like it's for me, but no. So I hope that they didn't change the way, but I will not. I will never know.
Thank you, guys. So before we end the presentation, I just want to thank you again for being. It was my first time as project manager. Changing the role from alumni to project manager was a huge shift, but I'm glad I did that because I also got to see all your work and it was very exciting. And on that note, we will be out soon with the book of the program, because we decided to collect the works from all the students who participated to the program in a volume, which is going to be a big volume. It's going to be almost 1,000 pages, collecting the works from all of you guys. And we are working on it with an Italian from Milan, a graphic design studio called Tomo Tomo. I can't say much more because we're still in the process, but I'm assuring you it's going to be very, very cool book. Thank you to all the people who joined us today. Thank you for the questions. Thank you, Photo Israel again. Thank you, Daphna. I don't know if you are seeing us, but if you are, thank you so much for organizing this. And yes, please be safe wherever you are. And I hope you will have a great evening. Thank you guys again for joining.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.